Okay, hi, this is Brianna with Mind Your Mind, and I'm here with Matt Todd. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the project you're involved in?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Matt Todd, and I run a program called Leadership Rewired. And the focus of Leadership Rewired, the goal of Leadership Rewired, is to work with young people, work with educators, as well as people who work with young people, and do training and provide skills and tools in emotional intelligence or social emotional leadership. So I travel around and I work with students, and we look at some of the challenges that they face in their lives as young people, talk a little bit about the brain science, about what's happening as the brain develops throughout adolescence, and then we provide them and we provide them with tools and skills that they can use to become more self-aware, better manage their emotions, and connect more positively with people in their lives.
Sounds good. So how did the Leadership Rewired start?
Yeah, so before I got started with Leadership Rewired, I was working for another nonprofit, another youth leadership organization, and I was traveling around, and I was focused on working with communities and working with young people to volunteer in those communities and to address social issues and environmental issues and that kind of stuff. And I started to notice there were a lot of young people who would come up afterwards and be like, that's really cool. I would love to help other people. I would love to, make a difference in the world, but I can't even deal with what I have going on in my life. So, how do you expect me to help other people? And so I had been following this organization called the Institute for Health and Human Potential for a while. And what they do is emotional intelligence research and training with adults. And so I applied for a job, and it was totally not this job. I applied for a job, and about halfway through my second interview, the founder, he was like, well, how would you like to start our youth arm? How would you like to take what we do for adults and design it so that we can bring it into schools and we can, give these skills and these tools to teenagers? And so, yeah.
So what are the main messages in your workshops?
So the main messages in the workshops, I think the biggest message is that awareness creates choice.
Okay.
And so when you're aware of what's going on around you, what's going on inside of you, you start to better recognize the choices that you have, the choices in how you act, the choices in how you think, and how you can deal with your problems. And so awareness creates choice, and then that choice creates change. That's how we change ourselves. That's how we change our communities. That's how we change our environments. And so that's the big focus is helping young people kind of come to that awareness. So we focus on the self-awareness piece. And then once they're more aware of the challenges that they may be facing or why they feel the way they feel, then they start to recognize the choices. And then they start to they're better able to manage those emotions.
Okay, so as you mentioned, your Leadership Rewired is a part of the Institute for Health and Human Potential, and you also mentioned emotional intelligence. Now, for people that are kind of like, what is that? Can you tell us what is emotional intelligence?
Yeah, so really generally, really basically, emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand your emotions.
Okay.
And also then to be able to recognize and understand the emotions of other people. So understanding how it is that why you might feel the way you feel. So recognizing, when I feel sad or when I feel angry, recognizing then, well, why is that? What is the impact that those emotions have on my behavior? And then second to that, after you've been able to start to identify that, second to that is being able to then recognize how emotions impact other people. So.
And just a little bit about yourself. Why did you choose a career in public speaking and youth empowerment?
So I don't think I really chose it. I finished university and I was working as a marketing and communications coordinator for another nonprofit sport organization, and I just realized I wasn't really happy. And so I stepped back from that and said, well, what do I need? Asked myself, well, what do I need to be happy? And when I asked myself that question, I looked at kind of where I'd been in the past, and it had always been, I'd been happiest when I was working with young people, when I felt like I was doing something that made a difference, and when I felt like I could be a positive role model. Those were my three big things. Mm-hmm. So once I figured that out, opportunities kind of started to become apparent. Like I started to see those opportunities, so I left that and started working for this other organization. And I think that's what I love to do. That's what makes me happy. And I learn a ton while I'm doing it. So I don't think I actively decided that I was going to be a public speaker or that I was going to do this kind of work. I kind of just fell into it. But it's definitely what I want to be doing. So.
Nice. Okay. And what has been your most memorable moment while working with youth?
I've had some pretty awesome experiences working with young people, and every time I go into a workshop or every time I get to stand up and speak in front of a large group of young people, I always learn something. Right. So I'm always learning about what it means to be a teenager now versus when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. One of the first things I say is when I'm in a workshop is like, I'm not here to tell you what it's like to be a teenager because I don't know. I'm not a teen anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think my most rewarding moments are those moments when somebody either comes up to me afterwards or they send me a message on Facebook or an email and they say, just want to say thanks because you've helped me become more aware, right? I think that as community workers, as people who work with young people, like our goal really, our aim is really to help young people empower themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest reward I think we can get is when a young person understands the choices that they have in their lives and how they can take control of their own lives.
That must be really rewarding.
That's cool.
Awesome. Okay, so in addition to working with Leadership Rewired, you've also worked with Free the Children and Me to We. Do you have any advice for any youth who are interested in choosing a career in nonprofit sector?
Yeah, I think it's important, whether it's in nonprofit or whether it's in a social enterprise or whatever a young person decides that they want to do. I think it's really important to kind of step back and ask yourself, what do you want to be happy? Like, what do you need in your life to be happy? We have so many opportunities now. Like jobs that we can create ourselves almost in some ways. And so I think that, one message would be to know what you want to be happy. It would also be to be able to define success for yourself. Because, one of the things that I've learned as I've gone through this and as I've worked with young people, if we let other people define our success, that's when we start getting pressured and we have that stress of, okay, I've got to, get a job, make money, get married, have a house, have kids, and follow that certain path. But everybody's path is different. And I think that if you're getting into nonprofit or you're getting even into social enterprise type of work, that it's really important that you always have your why. You always have an understanding of why you want to do this work, because it can be really hard and it can be stressful. And I think that the big lesson and the big message I would share is make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, then you're no good. You can't take care of anybody else, right?
Okay. And who would you say has been your biggest mentor and influenced you the most?
So I have to say, I guess my biggest mentor throughout my life has been my grandpa. He's been somebody that I've always gone to for advice. He's given me advice whether I wanted it or not. Right. But he's always been that person that's supported me, that's encouraged me, that's challenged me. I've been really fortunate to have mentors in my life and have quite a few. But of all of the mentors that I've had, he's been the most consistent, so. Like the more I go around, the more I talk to young people, the more you find out that there's a lot of pressure on them to succeed, right? And they want, it's coming from the media, it's coming from parents, from teachers, from their peers, telling them that they have to go take a certain path, they have to act a certain way, they have, especially in school, right? Schools, there's those, I sit down sometimes and I talk to, I'll talk to young people and I'll just be like, just tell me what it's like to be you. Tell me what it's like to be in high school right now. And I work a lot with grade 9s and that focus on transitioning from grade 8 to grade 9, which statistically is shown to be the hardest transition they'll make in their lives. And part of that's because of the academic, and part of it is because of the changes that are happening in them.
Right, exactly,
right?
And the social aspect too,
and the social aspect of it. And depending on the teenager, depending on the person, they define their success a lot of the times based on what other people tell them. And one of the messages, going back to kind of like what are those messages, one of the other messages that we try to spread is, define success for yourself. Know what it means to be successful in your own eyes, and know what it means to be successful on your own terms, because what that does is that helps foster self-confidence.
Exactly. And you don't have to follow that path.
Right.
So when you were in like grade 8 or grade 9, did you think you'd be doing this right now?
No, I had no idea what I was going to be doing. It was the same deal. Like I used to, when I was in high school, I was always told, okay, you're going to university, you're going to university, you're going to university. And I didn't necessarily know why, but I always knew that I had to go to university.
Right.
Like I would go visit my grandparents. My grandma would have a stack of a file folder this thick of articles that were talking about why it's important to go to university. And it's a lot of pressure, right? And then I got there and I got into university and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I took major to be determined my first year because I just had no idea. And I ended up taking psychology, and I think mostly that was because I wanted to figure myself out and my family out.
Because it's interesting. Right?
And it's interesting, right? How we work, why we do the things we do, why we think the way we think sometimes. And I actually, and part of the reason that I feel I'm so connected and I care a lot about helping young people get through their challenges, their external challenges, but also a lot of the times those internal challenges, is because, as I went through university and I started to feel that pressure, and the pressure that came from, my family, or the pressure that came from the people around me, and especially the pressure that came from myself, I got diagnosed with, in second year university, I got diagnosed with anxiety. And so I was on medication, and I was going to cognitive behavioral therapy, and it was really, really scary. And I have journals, and it's awesome because I go back, and I'm a huge advocate of journaling. I think journaling is really, really important. And I go back and I look at those journals and I read, and I'm like, wow, I don't even recognize who that person is, But I think about that, and I think about how scary it was at the time, and how, you didn't feel like those thoughts or those feelings were ever going to go away. You were ashamed because you're like, I should just be able to deal with this, and not necessarily knowing where to go because you didn't want to talk about it, right. And you're hiding it from the people in your in your life, and eventually I think got to that point. Two things happened. One was, somebody just told me at some point, was just like, you've got to just recognize that this is your situation, and, you can change it. And that was it was just one of those boom moments, right? Where you started to understand that, I think a big thing was I control my thoughts and they don't control me. Yeah. That was huge. And then the other piece was, this emotional intelligence stuff that I started to learn about. And I started to learn about how, when we're more self-aware, we're better able to manage those emotions, and we're better able to deal with their challenges. And there's all this research now that I wasn't interested back then, but I'm interested in now, about how our brains work, and why we do some of the things that we do, and how we can manage that. And I think when you take the time to practice those skills, and it's like any other thing. It's like learning a musical instrument. It's like playing a sport. You got to practice it to get good at it. And when you get good at it, it becomes easier to do, right? So it becomes easier to be aware of why you're feeling the way you're feeling, or what it is that you're feeling. And it becomes easier to be able to then manage it, right? So I think I went off on a tangent.
No,
but,
that's fine. I'd just like to kind of get into that issue about having anxiety when you're in university, because a lot of university students do go through that, and a lot of times they just don't know where to turn. So I was just wondering, was there any resource that you used, or did you just kind of realize it in yourself and seek help, or?
Yeah, for me, the first thing I did was I went to a journal, and I just started writing. Okay. That was really, I think, the most powerful thing. That was the thing that created the most change in me, was going to a journal and just writing down my experiences and writing down my thoughts, and getting it out that way. And then I went to student services and I ended up having to go to the doctor and just say, this is how I'm feeling, like this is what's going on, and then getting diagnosed, and when you get diagnosed, that's a scary thing too, because all of a sudden, you're put into whether you put yourself into it or, other people put you into it, you're put into a box, right? You're labeled. And so now you have an anxiety disorder, or, you're battling with depression. So it was 2.5 years that it took me to kind of go through that whole experience. And, you go back from time to time, you fall back into that kind of stuff and those thoughts and those feelings. And, as you, I think, practice and as you learn the strategies and the tools that can help you, it becomes easier to get out of it. But I think there are a lot of resources out there that I didn't use, like a lot of things, when I was in first year university, talking to an RA about this kind of stuff, would have probably been a good idea. That's why they're there. And then definitely student services and, going in and I utilized that as I went through it. I ended up, going to the university center, using, talking to people about it. So it helped out a lot.
Awesome. Yeah. And lastly, what are your plans for the future? Do you know right now?
Yeah, I have big plans, and you kind of have to just take one step at a time, and especially in this kind of work. But I would really like to see Leadership Rewired become bigger, have more people, more young people on board who are out there helping young people. The work that we do around social emotional learning and emotional intelligence, I want to see in curriculum in schools. And I want to make sure, I hope that I always have a meaningful message to share, and so I can continue to speak and continue to write and facilitate. But, for now, I'm just kind of taking it one day at a time.
Good. Okay, well, thanks very much for doing this interview with us. This is Brianna with Mind Your Mind with Matt Todd.